Well, we're going to spend the next 2 mornings with you guys. I've been asked to talk and speak about discipleship. Before we get into that, so I'm not a complete stranger up here, I'm going to give you a little bit of our story. Is that okay? I went to a Christian high school before I attended university. The school was an excellent school filled with excellent teachers who loved Jesus. But to the fault of my own, I became Christian by name, but not by nature. Do you know what I mean? I memorized Bible verses for quiz grades. I wrote essays on Old versus New Testament covenants. I knew much about Jesus, but I never experienced him. I was guilty of Christian being something I did, but not someone I was. Does that make sense? I wanted to follow God my way instead of God's way, and to follow the right God the wrong way is still to follow the wrong God. So when I went to university, I wanted nothing to do with Jesus. I had decided I was going to take a break from religion. I wasn't going to seek the Lord. I was going to intentionally avoid any Christian group or church or worship service that my campus had. My girlfriend, on the other hand, who is now my wife because I have what some of you call game, or what Joel Claveri calls being himself. My wife had a different ambition, which was in direct opposition to my own. She had already heard of a group called Chi Alpha Christian Fellowship, and during her first day on campus, she encountered some girls wearing Chi Alpha t-shirts, which helped move her into her dorm and invited her to a Chi Alpha service. She then invited me to the Chi Alpha service, so I reluctantly went to be with her, not to be with God, so she wouldn't be hit on by stupid Christian guys who read their Bibles all day while watching Fireproof. It's okay to say, right? That's okay to say. We're all God's children here. And when the service was over, I decided I was never going to go back. It was all way too strange to me. People took notes over what the person with the microphone had to say. In my school, no one ever took notes on what the speaker was saying unless they were going to be tested on it. But these Chi Alpha people were writing down in their books, word for word, what the preacher had to say as if something greater than a test depended on it. That was different. Students would run to the front after the message and get on their knees or stand up and raise their hands to the sky as if they were talking with God himself. I had never seen people express affection and desire for God, not to get something from him, but simply to get to him. And that was different. And as I got up to leave the service, one of the Chi Alpha guys held the door open for me and said, "Have a good night. I love you, man." And I said, "You what?" He said, "I love you, man." And I just stared at him awkwardly, trying to figure out what he wanted. Because guys don't tell other guys that they love each other. It was at this point, I decided never to go to another Chi Alpha again. I just had to do one thing first, go to the Chi Alpha after party, sit with my girlfriend at this place. As I was there, minding my own business, with no interest in anyone there but her, up walks this tall, scrawny, whiter than white dude. He had glasses on his face and a modern artist goatee on his chin. He looked like a guy who just made his own global warming documentary for a local film festival. As I was preparing an excuse to ignore whatever he had to say, he says the only possible thing to create my attention and destroy my disinterest. He saw the sport team shirt I had on, the hat I had on, and asked me one simple question: "Hey bro, how do you think the Dallas Cowboys are going to do this year?" Mixed reaction, that's all right. Some of us are going to hell, some of us aren't. Say that? Is that all right? No? All right. Wife says can't say that. Eric says maybe. And with that one question, we began a conversation concerning all things Dallas Cowboys, and before I knew it, they were closing up the Chi Alpha house. I don't even know where my girlfriend was because I had just made my first friend. And he was a 6'1" toothpick who called himself Scroggins, which isn't a fictional name or a nickname. That is his actual last name. I think it's German for really white. And that conversation turned into lunch the next day, which turned into video games the day after that, and I quickly discovered Scroggins was different from any person I had ever met. He was in a band called Twinkie Enigma, for one, which was ironic because he looked like a Twinkie Enigma. And in addition to all of these hobbies and habits, Scroggins talked about Jesus a lot, which I had never experienced before. And when I would hang out with him and his Chi Alpha friends, they would talk about Jesus a lot. They eagerly discussed what they were reading in the Bible as if it were living and active. They transparently shared their thoughts about who Jesus is, as if mysteries of God could be unlocked, as if God himself had said, "Come, let us reason together." And when they talked about this Jesus, it wasn't like he had died on a cross a long time ago, which I believed. They talked like Jesus died and actually rose again, which meant he is alive and can be known, because you can remember the dead, but you can only experience the living. He would ask me questions to get me thinking about Jesus. Questions like, "Alex, do you think God's laws are a motivation for obedience, or are they a description of reality?" How do you answer yes or no to that? He would ask me questions like, "What do you think is more important, the law or the criminal?" Scroggins made his time with me count, and when I wasn't with him, when I wanted to gratify my selfishness instead of let Jesus save me from it, Scroggins had a way of having spiritual dad instinct, where he would find me when I didn't want to be found and tell me bluntly but lovingly, "Over my dead body, will I let you live a stupid life." The more time I spent with him and his friends, the more I heard them talk about Jesus like he was actually in the room, the more it became clear to me that his Jesus and my Jesus are not the same person. Long story short, the demonstration of Scroggins and the community of small group he led, through this, the light of these Christians illuminated reality. And I realized for the first time that God has a right in our lives, not because of what he does, but because of who he is. I realized for the first time, Jesus didn't just die on the cross, he rose from the grave, which means Christianity isn't just a call for self-denial, but the offer of an Easter morning. Do you know what I mean? Because of these relationships which led to revelation, I gave my life to Jesus my freshman year of college and asked the Lord to never let me ask for it back.